Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, wherever you are from. Run through. So, my name is Sue Latter, and I am the SISEAP webinar coordinator and the head of the technical team today. Today's webinar is coming from Australia and New York, USA. The technical team are in Australia and the presenters are in New York at CSW70. So if you're having a problem during the webinar, please message the team and Christine, Cesarina or myself will respond to you. During the webinar, if you have any questions or comments for any of the speakers, please post those as we go along and we will get to them at the end of the session, and there will be a Q&A session at the end. Also, let our speakers know when you like, love, or celebrate something with the react button, which is right next door to your hands up, and we can do it. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Soroptimists International of the Southeast Asia Pacific President, Joanne Yeoh, who will host the webinar for the morning. Over to you, Joanne.
Thank you, Sue. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Joanne Yeoh, President of Soroptimists International Southeast Asia Pacific. Welcome to the webinar, where lifelong learning empowers individuals with the knowledge and confidence to understand, claim, and exercise their rights, making true access to justice possible. Next slide, Sue. Our vision affirms our unwavering belief that every woman and girl deserves the opportunity to reach her full potential, both individually and collectively. It reflects our commitment to a world where their voices are valued, their aspirations are achievable, and their contributions help shape strong, peaceful, and inclusive communities across the globe. Our mission reinforces this purpose by guiding Soroptimists in the transformative work that we do every day. Through education, empowerment, and enabling opportunities, Soroptimists create pathways for women and girls to rise above limitations, access new possibilities, and claim their rightful place as leaders and change makers. Together, our vision and our mission reminds us that we are not only uplifting individuals, we are building a future where women and girls everywhere can thrive with dignity, equality, and hope. Next slide. SISEAP in short works and serves across 13 countries, namely Australia, Cambodia, Fiji, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia, Mongolia, Myanmar, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Singapore, and Thailand. Next slide. Lifelong learning is the continuous pursuit of knowledge driven by curiosity and self-motivation. It's about learning throughout our entire lives, not just during our school years. Education today is shifting, becoming both lifelong and life-wide. As highlighted by UNESCO, learning now includes all ages, all levels, and all forms of education, whether informal, digital, or experiential. For us as Soroptimists, this isn't just a definition, it is our work in action. Through Soroptimists International, we turn lifelong learning into reality by reskilling and upskilling women and girls, creating economic empowerment opportunities, and promoting tolerance and inclusion. Lifelong learning empowers women and girls to grow, adapt, and thrive. It gives them the tools to shape their futures, strengthen their communities, and achieve their full potential. Next slide, please. Today's agenda gives us a clear picture of how lifelong learning and access to justice connect to the work we do across the Asia-Pacific region. We'll begin with the regional context, looking at why lifelong learning and access to justice are especially important for women and girls in our diverse communities. We will then explore the role of women in international development, recognizing that women are not just recipients of aid, they are leaders and agents of sustainable change. And finally, we look at 4 case studies that bring these ideas to life. Climate action justice, where women and girls build resilience to environmental challenges, economic empowerment through skills, training, and income opportunities, intergenerational justice, ensuring equity for women across all ages, youth advocacy, highlighting the powerful voices of young women driving change. Together, these elements show how Soroptimists across the region are empowering women and girls through knowledge, opportunity, and action. I'm happy to pass this time now to Dr. Donnell Davis, SISEAP Federation Program Convenor. On to you, Donnell.
Apologies, Donnell. Could you please unmute yourself and start again for us?
I'll try that again.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. We are coming from New York, so some of our delegates tonight are going to be delivering our case study. So it's such a delight to be able to have them active and speaking at the UN, so to speak. So it's my pleasure to introduce why we're having this tonight, why it's important for Asia Pacific to be properly recognised in these global forums. Right. We are pretty special here. Despite an enormous population, despite our leadership in some areas, our risk profiles in others, we are not properly represented. We're not properly represented here or any of the other UN programs generally. We are not represented well here. I think we have 5% representation of all the other delegates here at CSW. So that's not very much considering our feisty and our population numbers. We are not in very many global conferences. We are busy in some of the Council of Parties, which is the COPs that you know about. We are quite strong in the COP31, the COP30, the climate area, but that is because our women have got together arm in arm, and we've been very active for several years in order to get International Court of Justice rulings on climate and existential threats, and ensuring that future generations are protected. We are an area probably the highest outside of the war zone, the highest migration, and this has been happening for probably the last 50 years. The migration, which is sometimes forced, sometimes difficult, and we are one of the major performers in modern slavery. So we are at risk, but we have a few issues that are quite unique to our region. And the other part that's really crucial for the future is, of course, that 60% of our population is under age 25. That means we have to have new lenses on the way that we develop policy and the way that we do our projects on the ground. So why is it important to have a global voice at all? Well, as I've just mentioned, SDG 8 is all about decent work. And of course, why we're here in New York, we're dealing with access to justice as our priority theme here. We have to consider the lifelong opportunities and systems for young people to elders. And SDG 8 involves decent work. SDG 9, our region actually leads the world in innovative infrastructure. We also lead the world in cyber cyber technology and the good bits, but we also lead the world in the cyber security bad bits. So we do make our mark there without really being recognised for it. Thank goodness. Okay, and then SDG 3, of course, our risk profiles in our region are significant. The risks of climate. We also have high risks of conflict. 4 of our countries, its Soroptimists, are at war at the moment, having conflict over borders and people. We also have inequities in some other areas, but we also, when we look at our risk profile, we have a lot to be proud of. So some of the things that we're proud of in SDG 16 is our governance systems. 3 of our countries have the highest governance systems in the world, like the top 11 of the world. So some of our countries are really wonderful, strong, and some of our countries are quite very difficult, and our governance systems are really not performing in the way that it was intended. So we do have that variable, but what it means is we can probably tackle some of the issues in our own region. Now, SDG 5 is all about women, and that's what we're here for. And next slide, please. So why are we in CSW? There's 2 themes. We have a major priority theme that deals with access to justice. And then we have a review theme that's all about rural, remote, and really, really remote women who are in places like islands. So really, really remote is the strangest places in the world. So when we're dealing with access to justice, which is our topic tonight, we have to think about the transformative types of justice. So those green ones at the top is what you're going to pick up in a textbook. Distributive, is it fair? Can we fix it? Do we have access? Can we implement laws in our courts? Are our courts working properly? Do we seek punishment? Is the punishment delivered? Is there enforcement? And of course, corrective justice. Is there support for the victims in this, and is there compensation? So if you pick up a textbook about justice, you're going to have to learn about those top 5. But today we're going to concentrate those on the next 5, which are in bright blue. We're going to concentrate on social justice, about who benefits, who pays. We're intergenerational justice, about youth and elders, so that what intergenerational equity you would have heard about, and that is ensuring that we don't deprive our future generations from the benefits that we have in the current generation. The environmental justice is about the public goods of nature being lost and the private benefit gained. So we have some issues there with the environmental justice. And there's only been a few sessions in CSW on that. In climate justice has been very strong across the world. So that's who profits and who dies first. So that's been quite blunt. In economic justice, we are concentrating significantly this at CSW about employment, wage gaps, opening doors, making sure our youth have a pathway to be economically strong, and that they and also we're looking at the elders. One of the themes for a whole day here at CSW was on elder rights, because it's one of the newer rights that has been quite ignored in the past. Okay, the bottom 3, you don't have to know all of these things, but bottom 3 is what the UN really gets involved with. So criminal justice with governments mitigating crime, institutional transparency, and a whole range of other systems that ensure where the UN encourages good governance in many, many ways with carrots and sticks. And cultural justice is a fairly new one that has only been talked about recently, and in Human Rights Day last year was a very, we've had a major new area of research and new area of practice about religious systems and cultural justice and cultural rights for Indigenous peoples. So watch this space, because we're going to be having a whole lot more of wonderful things happening, but it has to happen worldwide in order for it to be strong from grassroots up. Now, global justice is making sure that everyone in the world has a voice, and I guess that's why we're here. We're making sure that Asia Pacific actually has a voice. So next slide, please. Okay, I would now like to hand over to Pauline Glover. She is the incoming program director for our federation, SISEAP, which is Southeast Asia Pacific, and she's going to introduce Nayomi. Thank you.
Thank you. I am presenting Nayomi Kannangara, CEO, International Women's Development Agency, Australia. Nayomi is a feminist leader in the international development sector with over 2 decades of experience advancing gender equality, driving systemic change and champion decolonised approaches to aid. As Chief Executive Officer of the International Women's Development Agency, IWDA, Australia's only development organisation focused exclusively on gender equality, Nayomi brings deep expertise in feminist leadership, innovative funding models, and partnerships that centre the leadership, voices, and agency of women's rights organisations across Asia and the Pacific. There is now a pre-recorded 10-minute video presentation.
Feminists, friends, colleagues, thank you for the opportunity to share my reflections on this critical topic as you gather in New York for the 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women. My name is Nayomi Kannangara. I'm the CEO of the International Women's Development Agency, IWDA, in Australia. I'm coming to you from the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and I extend the respect to all First Nations people. While the 70th session of CSW has governments focused on negotiating on language about access to justice, the women and the girls of Asia Pacific region, like all regions, are not negotiating language. They're negotiating survival. They're navigating courts that are too expensive, police stations that are unsafe, laws that promise protection but deliver silence, digital spaces that have become new sites of violence, and systems that ask them to be brave enough to relive trauma just to be believed. The report from the Asia Pacific Regional Preparatory Meeting in Bangkok was clear. The justice gap is real and it's widening. Yes, we have progressive legislation in many countries. Yes, we have ratified CEDAW. Yes, we have commitments under Beijing +30 and the Sustainable Development Goals. But there is a persistent, painful gap between rights on paper and justice in practice. And that gap is not accidental. It is shaped by structural inequality, by patriarchal power, by colonial legal legacies, by economic systems that prioritize profit over people, by militarization, by shrinking civic space, by climate injustice. Justice systems reflect the societies that built them, and unless we transform those systems, they will continue to reproduce harm. The Bangkok meeting reaffirmed something we all know. Access to justice is not just about courts and legislation. It is about power. Access to justice means economic security and social protection so women can afford to seek remedies. It means bodily autonomy that include access to sexual and reproductive health rights and comprehensive sexuality education. It means safe spaces, both digital and physical. It means language access, disability access, cultural safety. It means climate responsive legal frameworks for women displaced by rising seas, frequent flooding, and environmental devastation. It means accountability in humanitarian crises, in conflict, in workplaces, and in homes. Justice must be survivor-centered. It must be disability inclusive. It must be youth-led, and it must be resourced. We cannot continue to ask women to navigate fragmented systems that re-traumatize them. We cannot continue to expect women's rights organizations to hold the line with project-based short-term funding when there is funding available at all, while institutional reforms remains lacking. The region was also clear. Dismantling discriminatory laws require more than technical amendments. Discrimination is often embedded in gender-neutral laws. It lives in procedure, in discretion, in bias, in interpretation. It lives in implementation. So let's be clear. Legal reform without enforcement is symbolism. Policy without accountability is performance. We need constitutional guarantees of substantive equality. We need independent oversight mechanisms. We need timely, survivor-centered remedies. And we must guard against backlash, particularly in times of crisis. Climate disasters, pandemics, and conflicts too often become excuses for the erosion of women's rights. We must say clearly, access to justice is not optional in crisis. It is essential to democracy. The Bangkok discussion also underscored a truth civil society has long championed. Intersectionality is not an add-on, it is foundational. If justice does not work for women with disabilities facing inaccessible courtrooms, it does not work. If it fails Indigenous women navigating colonial legal systems, it does not work. If migrant, refugee, and stateless women fear detention when seeking protection, it does not work. If adolescent girls cannot independently report online abuse, it does not work. If LGBTIQ+ persons are criminalized while seeking redress, it does not work. If rural and maritime communities are often distanced from formal systems, it does not work. Justice that works only for the most privileged is not justice, it is hierarchy. Technology is now one of the sharpest frontiers in this struggle. Technology-facilitated gender-based violence is escalating across our region. Online harassment, stalking, non-consensual image sharing, these are not virtual harms, they are real. They silence women in politics, in journalism, in activism, and in their homes. At the same time, digital tools can expand access through remote hearings, online filings, mobile legal aid. But innovation must not replicate inequality. We must close the digital gender divide. We must demand accountability from technology companies. We must embed safety by design, privacy protections, and human rights standards in digital systems. We must ensure that safe online pathways remain. Not every woman has connectivity. Not every woman feels safe online. Justice must expand agency, not surveillance. Perhaps the most urgent message from Bangkok was this: political commitment without financing is political theatre. Justice reform requires predictable, long-term domestic funding. It requires resourcing national women's machineries. It requires core, flexible, multi-year funding for women's rights organizations, youth-led groups, and community justice networks. It requires individual-level, gender-sensitive, and disability-inclusive data, ethically collected and privacy-protected, so we understand who's been left behind. It requires investment in frontline workers, paralegals, community advocates, and survivor services. For too long, feminist movements have been expected to deliver systemic change with minimal resources. That must end. Civil society participants in Bangkok called for bold thinking, including consideration of a dedicated decade for women's access to justice. That call reflects urgency. Anything else will not close the digital gap. The Asia Pacific region is not approaching CSW70 empty-handed. We come with lived experience. We come with community-based innovations. We come with climate-responsive frameworks from the Pacific. We come with digital campaigns led by young feminists. We come with disability justice expertise. We come with cross-border solidarity. This is what feminist multilateralism look like. Grounded in communities, shaped by movements, accountable to survivors. As civil society, our role is not to politely observe negotiations. It is to shape them, to hold governments accountable, to demand implementation, to protect civic space, to insist that women human rights defenders are safe. Now is the time to move from commitment to enforcement, from fragmented service to coordinated systems, from consultation to meaningful participation, from token representation to leadership, from backlash to boldness. Justice is not charity. Justice is not a side agenda. Justice is not a line item to be cut when budgets tighten. Justice is a feminist demand and a fundamental human right. From Asia and the Pacific, in solidarity with movements across the world, we not only demand it, we are building it. Let CSW70 be remembered, not for careful wording, but for courageous action. Let us close the gap between rights and reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Nayomi. Nayomi was unable to be in person in New York. However, she was quite active when she talks about Bangkok. We talk about UN SISEAP, which is the United Nations Economic and Social Council for Asia Pacific. It's our regional UN. And we, of course, get together as our 53 plus 20 countries, and we get involved with issues that deal directly with our region. So when she talks about Bangkok, she's talking about UN SISEAP. And we are very pleased that she was able to give us this video, which is very rich and very interesting and captivating and elegantly articulate. So thank you, Nayomi and her team. Now, it's my pleasure today to go looking at grassroots projects in Soroptimists in Southeast Asia Pacific. And why we're looking at the local projects that we're providing women and communities justice through learning, by having a place at the table, by ensuring they have the necessary information about issues, developing practical skills, gaining the confidence to find out more, and understanding their rights and responsibilities in order to exercise them. So it is my pleasure to introduce, next slide please, introduce Cherrie Power, dealing with climate justice in our region. She is the Australian Treasurer, or SISEAP. She is the new President for SI Melbourne, and she's the SI Victoria Program Convenor for the region. And on that note, I'd like to introduce Cherrie. Thank you.
Thank you, Donnell. Okay, good morning, is slowly taking your land, where the gardens that once fed your family are now flooded by saltwater and the food you rely on is disappearing. This is the reality for the people of the Darapap village, a small community in the Murak Lakes region of Papua New Guinea. Reaching Darapap is not easy. You first fly from Port Moresby to the coastal town of Wewak, and from there you travel by boat across open water. In fact, the boat is the only way in or out of the village. But isolation isn't the biggest challenge for the community. The land around Darapap is very low-lying, protected only by narrow sandbanks that separate the lagoons from the Pacific Ocean. And today, the ocean is rising. Sea levels in the region are rising at about 7 millimetres per year, nearly twice the global average. During king tides, seawater pushes through the sandbanks and floods the village and its gardens. Coconut palms are dying, shoreland trees are disappearing, and families who once grew their own food are now struggling to feed themselves. But the story of Darapap is not a story of helplessness. It is a story of strength, resilience, and opportunity. The Murat Gardens Seeds of Friendship Community Garden is a simple but powerful solution. Build gardens above the water. By constructing raised platforms above sea level, the community can grow vegetables safely above floodwaters. These gardens will provide families with fresh, reliable food, improving nutrition and reducing hunger. But the project goes even further. In Darapap, women are responsible for feeding their families. By supporting the Darapap Women's Cooperative Society, this project creates opportunities for women to grow food, sell surplus vegetables at market, and generate income for their households. The women have already begun training in sustainable gardening and financial literacy. They have created 120 individual garden beds, and part of every sale will go into the cooperative fund to support future projects that benefit the whole village. There are other challenges too. The village has no fresh running water, so water tanks are being installed to provide clean water for both households and agriculture. Transport is also difficult. Traditionally, villagers travel by dugout canoe, and reaching the market can mean paddling for up to 12 hours through crocodile and snake-infested waterways. An outboard motor has now been purchased to make those journeys faster and safer. Together, these changes create something powerful, a pathway from vulnerability to resilience. Ultimately, the Murat Gardens Seeds of Friendship Community Garden is about more than growing food. It is about lifelong learning, dignity, and justice. Through training in sustainable agriculture and financial skills, women are gaining knowledge that will support their families and strengthen their community for generations to come. By supporting solutions that allow people to adapt and thrive, we help restore fairness and opportunity. Most importantly, this project allows families to remain on their traditional land, preserving culture, identity, and community. It creates stability, sustainability, and security for the future. And it shows that when women are empowered with the right tools and knowledge, they do not just grow gardens, they grow resilience, independence, and hope. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce Wendy Logan. She is the global treasurer for Soroptimists International, and she's a powerful force in her own club in New Zealand, which is SI Nelson. Over to you.
Thank you, Donnell. Yes, it's great to be in New York at the moment, and I'm going to talk about tackling barriers to economic justice. I'm going to talk about 3 projects from SI, Southeast Asia Pacific. And the first one is Fixed Child Support Campaign. This addresses SDG 1, 4, and 5. This is an outstanding example of breaking down barriers with policy change. The advocacy action by SI Adelaide that has led to Australian single mother families improving their economic position. These policy changes included extending single parent payments until the child turns 14, previously it was 8, separating child support from family tax benefits, preventing financial manipulation of vulnerable families. SI Adelaide then advocated for involving survivors of financial abuse in redesigning the system to close exploited loopholes. Then they pushed for centralising all child support collection through the Australian Tax Office to ensure consistent enforcement and making the government responsible for collecting unpaid child support. The advocacy by SI Adelaide and their supporters has resulted in less poverty and more opportunities for Australian children in single mother families. My work has always been in early childhood education, and I certainly appreciate that just a small change in income can make a great deal of difference for these families. So that is an excellent project from SI Adelaide and their supporters. The second project that I'm going to talk about is under economic empowerment, is some of the projects in Fiji that have happened over the last few years. Upskilling women. These address SDGs 1, 4, 5, 8 and 17. Just before I go on to this, I became much more familiar with the SDGs today. I went to a session this afternoon at the United Nations building, which actually talked about the progress we're making, and we've only got 4 years to achieve them left. So it's great to see all these Soroptimist projects that are actually addressing some of these SDGs. This started in Fiji in 2017 when the Soroptimist members of BAR realised that to provide the certificate base required for women to work in tourism or start their own business, they needed a training centre. With the aid of the Japanese consulate, they built the BAR Training Centre, complete with the commercial-grade cooking facilities, sewing rooms and traditional craft room. This training centre is a beacon of hope and has trained many hundreds of women, and another story is their caregiving course. The girls found employment not just locally but Australia and New Zealand, turning domestic workers into international professionals. Economic empowerment isn't just about introducing the women to new industries and monetarising the skills already held in the hands of our women. The Lautoka Club taught traditional Indian and Fijian garlands. By teaching them to source bark, leaves and flowers, we're able to turn a cultural staple for weddings and graduation into a steady stream of funding. These women have the skills, but they also need to market their products. So the Soroptimist Nadi Jet Set Club sought opportunities for the women to sell their products. They were able to partner with the Ministry of Trade to organise market days. The Nadi Jet Set Soroptimists provided a platform for micro businesses to showcase their products to exporters, find overseas markets for women who just months before were struggling to find a single customer. As the Fijian women progressed through their journey to economic empowerment, Soroptimists from SI Singatoka round out the story. They recognise that making money is only the first step. Managing is what ensures the family's future. The Soroptimists from Singatoka focused on basic financial management literacy. and for rural and Indigenous women, teaching them household budgeting and how to plan for the future, even when hours were reduced or jobs were lost. We moved from surviving the day to planning for the decade. In closing, whether it is a student at Cherrie Govind Memorial School learning to sew for the first time, or a mother in Bar exporting her crafts, the goal is the same: self-sufficiency by improving targeted skills-based training and the business framework to support it. We are just giving a hands up. We are building, we are not just giving a hands up, we are building an engine of economic independence that will run for generations, just at the grassroots level. Now I have another project which is very dear to my heart, from Aotearoa in New Zealand, and we had the project is Pay Equity. It addresses SDGs 1, 5, 8 and 17. The New Zealand government changed its pay equity laws, cancelling dozens of pay equity claims relating to many occupations. This has hit the New Zealand women particularly hard in caring and teaching and many of the others, because the claims had progressed a long way, and then some have actually gone through. So there's another inequity there. So Soroptimist clubs in Aotearoa advocated to reinstate the plan to achieve pay equity that the current government stopped implementing. SIANZ members participated in the 9th public hearing held by the People's Select Committee on Pay Equity. The delegation presented the background to the written submission on pay equity and responded to questions from the panel. This opportunity enabled them to highlight the continued inequities faced by women across Aotearoa and to enforce the urgent need for fair, transparent and sustainable pay equity legislation. And that's a big thing to do. I know I've appeared in select committees a number of years ago, so I really appreciate the work that the people had to put in with the background, etc. SIANZ's name was added as a signature to the letter being sent from the International Women's Caucus, calling for the government to urgently repeal the Pay Equity Amendment Bill 2025 and restore women's hard-won pay equity process. A written submission was sent to the People's Select Committee on Pay Equity, the letter highlighting the impact of the change in legislation on the women in Aotearoa, New Zealand, wider societal implications, and gave 6 recommendations, the most important being urging the government to reconsider and reverse the recent amendments to the Pay Equity Act. Many members also attended pay equity protests throughout the country, and certainly my club and myself and members, we all turned out. Recently, there's a little update on this, that actually there's a number of previous members of Parliament mainly who've just done a really big research and report on that was just presented, I think, when I flew out from New Zealand, so I'm not sure where that's gone to. But certainly pay equity is an important factor in achieving economic justice, as 44% of countries do not have laws that guarantee pay equity for work of equal value. So thank you very much.
Some of that makes me cry because there is regression in a lot of areas. However, the grassroots stories that you just gave us also give me so much hope. So it's now my pleasure to introduce intergenerational pathways stories. Now, this is with Filomena Pingiaro, yes, who is from Griffith club, and she's a brand new president there, but she's also a newbie to CSW, and I think she's been overwhelmed by the chaos of the first week of CSW, which is not very hard, by the way. We've had the most magic sessions already, and we've all learnt. Everybody everywhere has learnt so much this week. So over to Filomena. I'll let you sit down.
Well, thank you for the introduction there, Donnell. Greetings from the Big Apple and hello to everyone. In regional Australia, many young women are eager to lead change, contribute to their communities and speak up about issues that matter to them, yet they often lack the opportunity, the confidence or the skills to do so. Enable Empower, turning theory into action, is Soroptimist International Griffith's response to that challenge. It is also an example of lifelong learning and intergenerational pathways. Launched in 2023, the program was developed to help girls build leadership advocacy skills for positive change within their schools and communities. Now, to appreciate why this matters, we need to first consider our community's context. Griffith is located in the Riverina in New South Wales. It is a culturally diverse regional community where opportunities for leadership development, particularly for girls, can be limited. Through engagement with the local schools during the 2023 UN International Day of the Girl Child, we heard directly from the girls at the schools about the challenges they faced. These challenges included situations around well-being, their safety, gender stereotypes, and a feeling that their voices were not always heard. Now, while the schools provided an important support, we recognised as a club that we needed to provide a tailor-made program which focused on empowerment, resilience, and community action. So what did this program involve? The program brings together girls in year 9 to 11 from across the local high schools for a facilitated workshop. The program was primarily aimed at young women who might not otherwise have the opportunity to attend leadership workshops through their school curriculum. Professional youth facilitators were brought in to guide the learning. They focused on emotional well-being and intelligence, personal values, and practical advocacy, while the Soroptimist members provided mentoring and community connection. Importantly, the work does not end with the workshop. A key feature of the workshop is that the young women return to their school with a tangible project, which they've identified as a group at the workshop. Now, these can address issues which affect them, and they're real-world issues, which can include inclusion, safety, or peer support. Following an overwhelmingly positive response from participants and educators, the program has expanded annually. In 2024, we had 25 students from 3 high schools participate. In 2025, we reached 4 high schools with 27 students. Additionally, last year, we ran a half-day session for the 2024 cohort to consolidate their skills and support the projects that they'd already begun at their schools. The steady growth over the 3 years has demonstrated strong support from schools and continued student interest. The results of the program prove that empowering young women creates tangible community impact. Students have implemented wellbeing initiatives, such as advocating for safer school environments, and launched campaigns which have addressed bullying and domestic violence. At one school, students have established a mentoring group to support girls in year 7 to 12. The Enable Empower cohort has used the leadership skills gained at the workshops to pass on their learnings to a new group of young women at the schools. Teachers have reported also a notable increase in student confidence and engagement, while students spoke about the increased confidence in having a voice and being heard and being encouraged to contribute ideas for change. The program highlighted the importance of providing a safe and supportive environment where girls can discuss issues that affect their future. But perhaps the strongest evidence of impact comes from the students themselves. So I've just got a couple of quotes here. One student shared that it was really fun to meet other people and learn about the new qualities that she didn't know she had. Another reflected that how you influence the people around you is what defines your leadership. And one student simply put it as everyone has influence, even if you don't realize it. Now, they're just 3 quotes out of a myriad of quotes that we had, which were sort of all centered around the leadership and empowering issues. So the outcomes have highlighted that the power of lifelong learning and intergenerational pathways. Young women learn from the Soroptimist members and facilitators who bring experience, leadership, advocacy, and community service. But at the same time, Soroptimists have gained valuable insight into the priorities and perspectives of the next generations. This exchange has built trust, strengthened community relationship, and has created a pathway for ongoing mentoring and growth. Now, while we developed this program, we kind of wanted to make sure that it was a replicable community model. It requires modest funding, but relies on strong partnerships between the schools, local government, community, and the volunteers. And because the projects are student-led, the impacts multiply as the ideas grow within each school long after the workshop has ended. Our goal at Griffith SI is to continue to expand the program to more students and strengthen these pathways for youth advocacy. I guess the closing message about this project is that access to justice begins with education, knowledge, confidence, and voice. When communities create a safe space where generations can learn from each other, then young women gain the tools to shape their futures. And when young women are supported in learning and leading, they gain the skills to participate fully in their society. And when that learning takes place across generations, it becomes a powerful pathway to stronger communities. So programs like Enable Empower prove that when young women are trusted with leadership, the influence expands far beyond themselves. It ignites a positive change within themselves, at home, within their schools, their communities, and their society as a whole. So that's pretty much a wrap from me. Thank you for listening, and I'm back to you, Donnell.
Well, that brought a tear to my eye. You know, I've heard it before, but the way that you've presented it then has just been so touching, so effective. Okay, our lucky last case study is from our brand new youth ambassador for our region, our federation, and she is also the SI Global Impact Committee youth representative. So she is the youth rep on our Global Impact group, and at the moment I am the oldie on the group, the mature member on the Global Impact Committee, and we have do marvellous things. We get to shape international letters, international. With our other 4 federations, we actually do legal language. We question the Secretary General on the merger of UNFPA and UN Women. We do all sorts of strange things, but we also learn from our counterparts in the other federations. So it's a wonderful opportunity for Petrice. I believe she's got a 2-year placement, which is absolutely wonderful. But she's going to talk about youth advocacy, but also talk about the SPOT program. So over to you.
Thank you, Donnell. And as the youth member, I suppose it's fitting that I'm talking about the Soroptimist Puberty Organising Toolkit Community Program, as I guess I went through puberty not too long ago. So over 10 years, the SPOT Community Project has delivered safeguarded, age-appropriate, comprehensive sexuality education to 69,297 students across 355 schools in Malaysia. Guided by continuous monitoring and learning, SPOT strengthens children's safety and help-seeking skills by supporting schools and communities to address evolving developmental and digital risks at scale. When the SPOT Community Project began in 2015, many children in Malaysia reached puberty without clear, trusted guidance on body changes, personal boundaries, and how to seek help.
Conversations on these topics were often constrained by discomfort, shame, or stigma. And in schools, lessons frequently focused on delivering curriculum-required knowledge and risk awareness messages without limited time and space to build practical skills such as communication, consent, emotional well-being, and recognizing unsafe situations. Over the past decade, the risks facing children have evolved and intensified. National surveys and government reporting continue to show gaps in adolescent knowledge, well-being, and protective behaviours, indicating that many young people still struggle to navigate puberty and relationships with confidence. At the same time, rapid digitalisation has reshaped children's daily lives. Law enforcement data and national studies on online child sexual exploitation and abuse point to growing exposure to sexualised content, online grooming and exploitation, often occurring at younger ages and across diverse communities, which has emerged as a key theme here at CSW, but I'll save that for another day or another Facebook blog post. These trends show that information and harm prevention messaging alone are not sufficient. Children need repeated, age-appropriate opportunities to develop practical skills, ask questions safely, and understand what to do when something feels wrong, both offline and online. Schools and families also require consistent support and practical tools to respond effectively as children grow and risks change. The core problem, therefore, is not a lack of intent, but a lack of sustained, learning-led education that adapts over time. If I could have the new slide, thanks. So how does it all work? To address the identified gaps, Sidi Aisha Hassan Hazri, SIPJ project lead, designed and implemented SPOT as a learning-led delivery model, refined over 10 years to remain relevant, safe, and scalable. So firstly, the program works within existing education systems, maintaining long-term working relationships with the Ministry of Education, state education departments, and district education officers to ensure consistent school access and responsible delivery. Secondly, SPOT delivers structured, age-appropriate, comprehensive sexuality education modules focused on puberty, personal boundaries, consent, digital safety, and help seeking. Content is practical and skills-based, designed to complement existing curricula rather than duplicate it. Thirdly, a train the trainer model is used to recruit, train, and supervise youth volunteers, ensuring consistent and ethical facilitation. Safeguarding is embedded throughout delivery, including supervised sessions, clear referral pathways, and ongoing content review. 4, continuous monitoring, evaluation, and learning underpin the model. Participation data, facilitator feedback, school engagement patterns, and safeguarding reviews are analysed regularly to improve materials, strengthen delivery quality, and guide decisions on scale and adaptation. And lastly, reach is extended through strategic partnerships and digital innovation. In 2025, after a decade of cumulative learning, refinement, and trust building with schools and partners, UNFPA Malaysia committed 1.15 Malaysian ringgit to support SPOT's expansion into 200 schools and to strengthen its digital learning program, reinforcing in-school sessions and supporting continuity of learning beyond the classroom. In the same year, this approach enabled SPOT to reach 31,729 students across 149 schools in 8 states, building on a decade of delivery experience and institutional credibility. SPOT set out to create practical change that would last. For children, this meant gaining a clear and age-appropriate understanding of puberty, personal boundaries, consent, and digital safety, alongside the confidence to seek help from trusted adults when something feels wrong. For schools and communities, the aim was to strengthen adults' ability to respond calmly, consistently, and safely to children's questions and concerns. Over 10 years of implementation, SPOT has been successful in achieving these foundational outcomes. Students demonstrate greater clarity about body changes and boundaries, increased awareness of online risks, and a stronger willingness to identify trusted adults and ask for help. Teachers and school leaders reported increased confidence in reinforcing key messages after sessions, supported by structured materials, trained facilitators, and clear safeguarding guidance. Continued demand from schools, including repeat engagement, indicates that the program remains relevant and trusted across diverse settings. Spot is also transparent about the limits of any single intervention. Lasting behavioural change is shaped over time through repetition, reinforcement, and supportive environments. Success is therefore not determined by immediate transformation, but by building strong foundations for protection and healthy development. Looking ahead, Spot will continue to learn, adapt, and work in partnership to strengthen and scale this approach in the best interests of Malaysian children, supporting those who will shape their country's future. And now talking about my role as Youth Ambassador and Youth Advocacy, one of the most important things to recognise when we talk about access to justice in our region is the demographics of the Southeast Asia and the Pacific. As Donnell mentioned earlier, around 60% of the population is aged 25 and under. That means young people are not just future leaders, we are the majority of the population right now. If we want women and girls to truly access justice, young people must be included in the conversations and in the solutions. Throughout CSW70, I've been struck by how many young people are already shaping policy and leading critical conversations. I had the chance to meet other Soroptimist youth ambassadors from around the world and whom I'm pictured with in the photo on the slide, all committed to ensuring young people move from simply being present in these spaces to actively shaping advocacy and policy. Across parallel sessions, I've heard from youth driving change in powerful ways, including a high school student and a college student speaking about their lived experiences advancing women's rights amid conflict and political restrictions in Iran and Ukraine, and a young woman who survived digital sexual abuse and helped lobby the US government to introduce the Take It Down legislation. So access to justice is not just about court and legal systems. It's also about knowledge, confidence, and opportunity. Lifelong learning gives women and girls the tools they need to recognise injustice and to take action. As Youth Ambassador for SI Southeast Asia Pacific, I see my role as helping to bridge generations, bringing youth voices into Soroptimist advocacy, while also encouraging more young women across our region to become involved in advancing gender equality. When young women are supported, educated, and empowered, they do not just benefit themselves, they strengthen their communities and improve the world around them for people of all age and genders. But I know I don't need to tell Soroptimists that. So back to Donnell.
I think we're in a very lucky position to have Petrice start in her new role. And look, thank you for all of our case study presenters. They all have a personal attachment to the topics that they provided, which also gives us inspires us even further. I hope you were able to use some of their techniques and their inspiration to take back to your clubs and wherever you're working. Now, I'm not going to talk for a little while. That's probably a good thing. Now we have a very short impact video and it has no sound. So let's just have a quiet reflection of where we're at. Thank you. That really says it all without saying a word. So I'd like to now open up or invite your questions, and I will ask the back-end technical team to assist in this area. Thank you.
Well, Donnell, this is a first for me for any webinar. We don't have any questions. So that is a very comprehensive, yeah, you're muted if you're going to talk with me, but that's the first. So if anyone has got a question, please write it in the messages, and the
Yes, that is.
presenters would be willing to take any questions and to talk if or if there's any comments, and if not, yeah, we can. Have any speakers got any questions to each other?
No, I think it's quite late here at night, and I think we're exhausted after the first week, and I think we just needed to make sure that we were doing all that we needed to do to share some of the spirit of the place that we have here, which I think we've probably done.
Oh, well, you have, and it's been wonderful. Samantha's actually said not a question but a comment. It's truly inspiring work. And the delivery, I think, from all the presenters has been, you know, truly remarkable. And what you're doing over there in New York is just mind-blowing.
Now, we get invited all over the place. We've been invited to do extra speeches and all sorts of things, and to be backup speakers for in our Soroptimist, because we have got case studies to share. And not all the organisations who do come to CSW, they might work in policy, but they don't necessarily get to test the grassroots like we do. So we're in a very privileged position in Soroptimist to be able to have the grassroots in communities to actually articulate what they need. We've got people who work internationally with policy, and then national policies, and right down to local government interventions, and even vaccination of babies and things like that. So, you know, we're in a wonderful position in Soroptimist that I don't think the other organisations have the opportunity to do. So we should really celebrate this, I think. So okay, if we have no more other comments, I'd like to just hand over to our president. Oh, you've got a note?
Yeah. There are lots and lots of comments coming in, Joanne, just before you start, if that's all right with you. And they are, and a lot is interesting because they're from the program. Rhonda says, excellent presentation, well done. Most questions answered. Christine, most impressed by the pay gap work undertaken by New Zealand. Isla from Indonesia is a wonderful presentation, proud to be part of SISEAP, and aren't we all? Thank you for the presentation on the seeds from Mary Casey Marshall, and I'll speak to Mary off how New South Wales and Lightning Ridge can help. And a lot of clubs in Australia and SISEAP did help Moreton North in donating money towards that. Will the short video be available to clubs? So, yes, Wendy, we're trying to actually get it up on the SISEAP Facebook page and on the Reels. So once it's up there, it can be shared out. Great presentation and inspirational stories. Well done, team SISEAP. And that's from Sarada. So thank you, ladies, for all your comments and being part of the presentation and webinar today.
And the stories that the girls have handwritten and rewritten about the projects are also available to anyone who's really interested. So just flick an email to SI Griffith if you are interested in enable and empower, or any of those clubs that you had wanted. However, you're quite comfortable, you're quite welcome to just direct them to program 2, and we'll make sure that we do the introductions and connect you properly. Okay.
Yes, and if I may, the recording will be available on the SISEAP YouTube site, possibly by Monday.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay. The 1-minute video is really easy to share, and I've had that in WhatsApp, but the 10-minute video is just too memory intensive. So, okay, on the technical side of things, I'd like to hand over to Joanne, and thank you for your leadership in this area.
Thank you, Donnell. So everyone, as we come to the end of today's session, I hope our conversations have reminded us of the extraordinary power of lifelong learning, access to justice, and the leadership of women in building inclusive and sustainable communities. Across the Asia-Pacific region, Soroptimists continue to show that when women and girls are equipped with knowledge, opportunities, and support, the impact reaches far beyond the individual. It transforms families, it strengthens communities, and shapes a better future for generations to come. My sincere thanks to everyone who joined us today for your engagement, your insights, and your shared commitment to advancing the empowerment of our women and girls. And a special thank you to our inspiring speakers and our dedicated technical team who made this session possible. Together, we are not just imagining a more equal world, we are actively creating it. Thank you, have a wonderful evening, and good night.